session. And I will send everyone a link and a copy of the slides by email tomorrow so you can share with your colleagues and also review everything that we discuss. I'm now going to take this time to introduce today's presenter. I am proud to introduce co-founder and CTO at Stratus 10, Kevin Risson-Chu. Stratus 10 is an Amazon Web Services advanced tier partner, and we specialize in helping companies migrate to the cloud and implement best practices if they're already on AWS. I'm going to let Kevin run over the agenda. And again, if you guys have any questions throughout the event, please feel free to use the Q&A function. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to some of you as well. Thank you for joining us today. We're just gonna give a quick little presentation to kind of get your thoughts going on getting basically back to school this fall, things to expect, things to look out for. Kind of talk very high level. We will dig a little deep into one AWS service that may help you as you're moving into the cloud, and from there, we'll open up for questions. All right. So real quick, the agenda for today is the quick intro on the AWS and the benefits that it provides, a couple items to look out for when you're dealing with costs and budgeting best practices, talking about security, what to look out for, and then also scalability, how to start moving your data out of your data centers and into AWS, and while still keeping functions there and using a hybrid architecture. So for those of you that don't know yet, AWS is a public cloud. It offers scalability, reliability, gives you flexibility, moves your cost model from a CapEx where you're having to purchase everything to more of an OpEx model, and it has a large global reach. I know this audience is primarily US education. There are multiple regions just within the US to service you, depending on where your target audience is. So what sets AWS apart? So customers have been selecting AWS for over 15 years. They've been around since 2006, building out services. When it started, it was only a couple services. They're now up to 165 and counting services. The factors that drive their market lead is their experience, the breadth of their service and depth of their services, the pace in which they innovate, their global footprint, talking about the multiple regions available, and most importantly, their ecosystem, the partners such as Stratus 10 on the consulting side, and then the software partners on there just continue to grow year over year. So you have a lot to choose from, even when you're dedicating solely to AWS. Okay, so we'll talk real quickly about, oops, come on, slide. Okay, we'll talk real quickly about the money. So things, if you're not familiar with how cloud economics works, they're pay-as-you-go model. So you pay for what you use. If you know you're going to be using some advance or some, I guess, long-term plans, you can select to do a reservation with AWS. And basically what this means is you commit to a 1-year spend of a certain product or service, and in return, AWS gives you a discount because they now can plan for that usage. The other philosophy AWS has is the more you use, the less you pay. And what that means is the more volume of consumption you have, either in storage or bandwidth, etc., they'll lower the price for you. Okay. So digging a little bit more about pricing philosophy, cloud computing from an AWS perspective or from a provider perspective is inherently a high volume, low margin business. What that means is AWS is able to massively scale its operations and get economies of scale out of it, which lowers their costs considerably. They then pass this cost on, or the savings onto you as the consumer. As mentioned, there's multiple pricing models, which allows you to balance your spending but still giving you the flexibility to do what you need to do. I mentioned earlier, there's tiered pricing and volume discounts. So the more you use, the per unit costs will actually decrease. And then there's also custom pricing. So if you have large spend in a particular thing, such as say you're running an LMS system, that's a very high bandwidth service. So you can negotiate some custom pricing with AWS or your solutions provider, reseller, distributor. All right. So I kind of want to jump real fast into budgeting best practices. There's lots of tools for you when you're working with AWS as far as from a cost perspective. There's services such as Cost Explorer. There's the Enterprise Services Program where you negotiate a long-term 3-5-year contract with AWS, and in return you get significant discounts. There's assistance from consulting partners such as ourselves, where we can help model some of your traffic and your usage and determine what the best use of your money is and how to spend it, and also understanding your true cost of ownership. When it comes to your spend, you can do reservations, you can do what's called auto-scaling groups, so it allows you to use just what you need. And then you can also use spot instances, which is a high discount way of using instances with a little caveat. Lastly, understanding your storage needs goes a long way too, because AWS has different storage options for you. And depending on how fast you need to access your data, you can see some significant savings along the way. And then lastly, just how you build out your infrastructure is very important. You can go serverless, containerize, or even automate the use of your instances and really gain some cost savings there. Okay. Around the security front, if you don't know already, AWS treats cloud security, their phrase is, it's job zero for everybody. And basically what this means is security is top of mind for everything that they do. And the benefit from you as a consumer is that you get the, basically AWS has to build themselves for the most security sensitive organizations. You may not need that level of support, but you got that level of support being with them. Accreditations and certifications that they have gone after, achieved, FISMA, HIPAA, ITAR, FedRAMP, all of these are probably, if you're working at the within the education space, you may have either run across or have heard about. There is a pretty significant list that is not on here that you can go to if you would like to look at. On the URL above, and we'll share this afterwards as well. How do they get to security across the board for every customer? Well, it's based on a shared responsibility model. What this means is AWS takes care of some things, you take care of other things, and together you're able to achieve these certifications. So keep that in mind. It's not although the cloud is secure, it's not everyone on AWS and you can you're free to do whatever you want to do. You do have a responsibility in this in order to achieve those certifications and accreditations. Okay. And then jumping over as from a scalability and hybrid architecture perspective, we know that the pandemic has basically brought on remote learning and remote workforce, oftentimes in the same dining room table. So we want everyone to have a good experience, regardless of what kind of device they have available to them. So AWS has a solution called Workspaces, which can help you as educators provide a seamless experience for your audience, students or fellow academics, say if you're running a teaching webinar. And Workspaces is basically just a virtual desktop interface that you can customize how you need. And the end user, your students, can use any device, phone, tablet, Chromebook, old desktop that they may have sitting at home that a parent brought home for them or something, and able to access a common environment that you control and manage on behalf of your students. So very useful service. And currently AWS is running a special tier, so where you can run up to 50 workspace licenses for free. So reach out to us and let us know if this is of interest to you. We can definitely help you get started running that setup. Okay. Talking about how you get your data onto the cloud. I know right now many of you probably have data centers or network closets that you're hosting your data or your services on there. And you're thinking, gosh, how do I start getting this onto the cloud so that I can make it available to my students and help them get access to some of these things, all while doing it in a low-cost manner, and not having to break the bank in order to support this kind of scenario and setup. So you really, in order to do that, you really kind of have to think about 5 key things, and that's what kind of data are you looking to move over there, and is this file data or block data? Also, where is it going to go once it's on AWS? AWS has a lot of different services that can store data, and depending on how you're going to use it, the service that you choose will determine that. So is this data going to only have to move once, or is it going to have to be moving there on a continual basis? Does the data need to just move into AWS, or are you also looking for the data to flow back downstream onto your on-prem environment? Talking about how much data do you have? Is it relatively low, like in the hundreds of gigabytes or low terabytes? Or are we talking about hundreds of terabytes or even a petabyte of data? How much time do you have to move that data? Do you need to move it right away, or it can be a little more casual? And then lastly, how fast is your connection to AWS? These will all determine what you need and what you choose. The service that we were talking about that can help you move this data is a service called AWS Storage Gateway. Basically, the Storage Gateway is a hybrid storage service that gives you an on-premise access into virtually unlimited cloud storage. Customers use Storage Gateway to simplify storage management and reduce costs, which is key for a hybrid cloud storage use case. These include moving your tape backups to the cloud, which reduce your on-premise storage needs, and also the service that you're probably paying for offsite tape storage, while providing low latency access to the data in AWS from your on-premise applications. So hybrid storage use cases for Workspace, basically enabling your cloud workloads, doing backup and archives, disaster recovery, and doing tiered cloud storage. So if you have data that you need to access more frequently, or data that can move over time, say if the data hasn't been accessed in 30 days, move it to a lower, slower tiered storage, and then eventually move it into a deep archive storage, because you won't need to access it, or if you do, you've got plenty of time before you need to access it. Okay, so when would you use Storage Gateway? If you're looking for low latency from on-premise data to AWS, that's when Storage Gateway comes into play. You can use it for your hybrid workloads, your latent sensitive on-premise applications, content distribution across offices, or even file-based applications or file-based access to objects in S3. Add to that a couple other services such as Data Sync and File Gateway, one configured into your Storage Gateway, and you can rapidly move on-premise data into AWS while still retaining your on-premise access to latency and sensitive questions or sensitive applications. So that kind of is the end of our really quick lightning talk on different services and solutions that you can use with AWS. I'll put the question up here, but I also am going to go to the next slide because I want to highlight a recent change with AWS that can benefit all of our customers. So if you are currently running AWS and have an active workload in AWS, AWS will pay you $10,000 in service credits if you work with a well-architected partner such as Stratus 10, perform a review, and then once that review is performed, you'll be presented with a list of high-level items that probably should be fixed or resolved in order to be considered well-architected. If you work with Stratus 10 to remediate those items, AWS will give you a $10,000 service credit to pay towards your AWS expenses. So this is a new change for 2021 and is a great opportunity if you need to shore up your AWS usage and infrastructure. This is a great way to take advantage of that. So please let us know. All righty. So with that, I'll kind of pop this back on and questions. Okay, so looking at this, someone says, what are the tools available for tracking your AWS spend? Well, I would always start with the billing dashboard. I would use that first, but then from there, it's a good jumping point to go and use Cost Explorer or use AWS Budgets. Budgets is a nice tool in that you can set up alerting on you. So as things increase in price or as your spend increases, you can set it to give you a notification. You can set that notification either as a hard dollar value, or you can set it as a percentage budget. So it's very useful. And then lastly, your cost and usage reporting. This is essentially the line item of everything that you are using. And it can be broken down to the hour if you need that granularity. Additionally, there's also third-party services out there, such as Cloud Checker, which is the tool that we use. Very powerful, lets you do some digging into your spend, and even makes recommendations on how you can adjust. These are automated recommendations, but it's a pretty good starting point. All right, let's see. Any? All right. What are things to keep in mind when managing costs on AWS? Well, the variable items such as your data transfer, that's a key one. Data coming into AWS is always free, but data going out, and this could be data going out to your end consumer or end customer, students, or even to another region if, say, if you're backing up your data. But if you run an LMS and it's very video intensive, that's probably going to be your biggest bill. If you're running any EC2 instances, compute instances, you want to make sure that you're running just what you need. Don't over provision. That can also be a big drain on your money. And then lastly, if you're finding that you're running functions that Lambda functions, which is their serverless service, if you're running a little bit too often your functions, it might be cheaper to move those functions over to a dedicated EC2 instance to run. But again, you can play with that cost modeling. Okay. Are there people out there to help me manage my AWS infrastructure? What are my options? Yes, as I previously touched on, the APN or the AWS partner network ecosystem is growing leaps and bounds. There are lots of companies out there, partners such as Stratus 10, can help you through this and get you on to managed services. And I would highly recommend it if you don't have technical teams in-house, and even if you do, they probably are doing what they should be doing, not managing AWS. So offload that service and let Stratus 10 or another managed service provider assist you with that. Let's see. Talking a little bit more about workspaces. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, to circle back, Workspaces is a desktop as a service, remote desktop service that AWS provides. Typically, if you hear Citrix or you've got some on-premise desktops that people are remote desktoping into to perform work, that would be a use case that Workspaces could take over for you and help. It's good for the remote workforce as well. So if you have employees that are working from home, teachers that are working from home, and they need to have a reliable desktop that they can use, Workspaces is a good component for that as well. It is either pay as you go, or you can do a monthly bill. Pay as you go is good for, say, students that are part-time or only doing small volumes of classes, or you're a teacher, then you can use the monthly pay, and that'll be cheaper in the long run. So how do I scale my application in the event of more traffic or more people? Well, earlier we had mentioned setting up an auto-scaling group to scale out your infrastructure. And we can certainly help you with that. That's an EC2 specific service. All right, I think that's all the questions that have been submitted so far. I'll give you 10 more seconds if you want to ping and say, I'm still typing my question.
So we will be sending out a recording of the event as well as the slides for you guys. We also, if you guys are eager to get started, are offering a well-architected review. Kevin, I believe we had a slide with that URL for them to go to now.
There you are.
And right now there's a special offer. So for any high priority items, you can actually earn $10,000 to start remedying them. So I definitely encourage you, if this is something that you're interested in, to get started with. I will also send this information in a follow-up email. So thank you guys for joining the Back to Class with AWS, and definitely look for an email from me with these materials. Thanks, everyone.